Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for...
On your marks, get set, go! Unspun.
Is this some sort of a race?
It's an amazing race.
It is an amazing race.
I brought it up last week, the COVID, the fact that I was trying to get COVID shot and I missed the opportunity, and I got it on the list, and I was wondering if I was going to, get my shot. And so after our podcast, and I was doing another podcast that I host, I could hear my phone ringing across the room, and I'm like, oh my God, if that is the pharmacy calling me, I will and so I end this podcast, and I can't leave. I'm in the middle of an interview, and I go over and look at my phone. It's like Rexall drug phone call. Like, no message, nothing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so, of course, I'm calling this number, and nobody's answering. It's ringing, and then it answers, and they pick up, and then I lose them, and I'm like, what the hell? So I Google, I go, which Rexall is this? Where are they? And I could see it was up on Fraser. And so I hopped in my car, and I just put it on speaker, and just kind of kept, it was just dialing. And then finally they picked up, and I was on hold, and I'm driving, heading up to Fraser and 50th, the Rexall up there. And it's about a 15-minute drive from my office. And she picks up, yeah, sorry, you didn't answer. So I know, but I'm like 2 minutes away, and I'm on your list, right? So, and she let me just check. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So you're 2 minutes away? I said, yeah. Literally, I was more like 10 minutes away, but
It's a George-affleck 2 minutes.
Spin. So I got there, and I was the only person in the whole pharmacy. I was the only person there, and I got my shot. It was that was it. AstraZeneca. Bam. Crazy. It was like I needed music that was like this. Needed some music to go with me.
How did you feel when you were sitting there and they're doing the swab on your arm and just about what was going through your mind? You're a pretty pragmatic dude. What did you feel like?
Yeah, I'm not a very excitable kind of guy. So, it was very, just I didn't take a picture. I haven't posted it. This is the first time I've actually talked about it publicly, because I don't know if you saw, the guy who holds up the blank, I should repost this. He's on Instagram. It's huge on Instagram, and he does these cardboard things, and he posts things on these cardboard cutout about. He makes these statements.
Yeah.
And he said, the statement he did this week was, I don't need to know if you had your vaccination. And he's standing there in New York. I'll post it on my Twitter feed. So this is the first time I've talked about it.
Okay, so can I pry a little bit further? Are you okay with talking about it? Okay, well,
I
want to know then what happened. Okay, well, not to get too personal, but okay, so you didn't really know that was going to happen that day. Then there you are, and then you get the shot, and you don't take a picture, and then you don't really talk about it, but you've done the amazing race, and there you go. It's over. Boom. You've got AstraZeneca, which works because you have family. Amanda's family, your wife's family, is
in the
UK. So you know plenty about AstraZeneca. So we can get into the details of that for others. But what was it like for you? Did you feel any after effects right away, or the next day, or?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, and because all my my 10 people group, 4 of us got the shot the same day. So all 4 of us that's why it was kind of like Amazing Race. It was like a competition.
I love it.
Because we all found out we're all 56 years old. And so we were all, and then one guy got his in at 11 a.m. and he got on the list first. And then I'm like, oh man, so that's why it was like this crazy race.
You're competitive, and now what the deal is.
Yeah, we're all competitive. So we came home, and we all felt pretty good, and we had a glass of wine in the backyard, and we sort of share this communal area downtown that we can share. And so we had a couple of glasses of wine, we're just celebrating, and then went to bed. And I got up. Actually, I went to the gym the next morning. Felt pretty good. It was Good Friday, so everything was closed. Right. And then at noon, I felt like I suddenly had the flu, and I literally just had to lie down and eat chips and drink pawpaw and watch movies on.
I like that.
It's like, sorry, Amanda, I'm going to do nothing now.
Sorry, Amanda, I'm down 12. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I know that the 4 of us each had a different experience. So one of them, he was really, really sick. He was out for 2 days, basically zonked, sweating, and really badly. Another friend was just sweating, and he was out for about a day. And then another one did, minor headache, a little bit of roughness, but nothing too bad. So it definitely has an impact. But they say, I think you were telling me this, if not having any kind of feeling is you want to have some kind of
look at it as a good thing. This is what I've learned from my experts, and quite frankly, your favorite person, Dr. Bonnie Henry, has often used the words robust immune response. When you have a reaction to the vaccine, whatever vaccine it might be, having a robust immune response, which is, oh, I don't feel great. That's your body going, whoa, let's direct all of our energy over here to create the antibodies that we need to lay that foundation of the first dose. And for me, as I've written about at the orca.ca, by the way, getting lots of questions about that now because I'll throw down, I'm 2 doses in, and people are like, what? Hold the phone. The vaccine envy is real. So, if you want to read.
That's kind of why I didn't want to talk about it. That's why I haven't really posted it, because I do feel like, I jumped a queue a little bit because of the nature of my age and what happened with it.
Can I just say, I want to knock this down right here, right now, because while we have vaccine envy for the United States, what they're not doing is keeping score. You're just getting your vaccine. When you get the call, you take the shot and you get over yourself. And some states are better than others. Some provinces are better than others. I had a really good girlfriend of mine have the opportunity to get her AstraZeneca shot. She posted it in her Instagram and said that she was feeling a little guilty because she's not a teacher. I DM'd her and I said, go get your shot. Go get your shot. Don't wave people through at a green light. People that all of a sudden want to be that guy at a green light and everybody's like, holy crap, you're causing a traffic jam. Take the shot, get out of the way. Take the shot, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Take the shot, get out of the way.
Especially when it's expiring.
Well, exactly.
In this case, they had 1 day left to get these shots into people. So,
and we need to just do it.
Yeah. And you hear these stories about people walking in, and there's just like they call, on the loudspeaker, come and get a shot right now. We got a couple of doses.
Costco.
Great. Just go. Don't judge anybody.
Two friends shopping in Costco, solo, masks, the whole thing, doing their, I got to get my shot done. We're about to close. We have 4 spots for AstraZeneca. If you're 56 to 64, now is your and they were like, okay, turned their carts around, went over and got the shot. I do want to point out a couple of things as well with the vaccine and be just stop judging people. And the vaccinations are going to increase exponentially because the supply is going to increase exponentially. When we're watching the news and everybody's frustrated about how there are all these vaccines left in freezers, please know that you are watching Ontario-centric news coverage. That is a fact. I mean, there are problems in vaccine rollout. There's no question it's been far from perfect. However, in BC, the whole why do I have to wait 4 months for my second shot is because every vaccine is being used, every single one is being used. So we need to be mindful of that, as we do have to be mindful of, the P1 variant. Everybody's talking about, we're the hot spot on the planet outside of Brazil. It's we're also doing more genome sequencing, looking for those variants than anywhere else in the country as well. So it's what do we know versus what we know for sure? And hopefully in the days and weeks to come, where I believe I'm hearing from my sources, Keith Baldry, that there are going to be more regular briefings, live in-person briefings to update, because things are becoming so uncomfortable. Yeah, uncomfortable for everybody. I now know, in just since we talked last, I can say I now know in my fairly inner circle, 5 people who have tested positive, 7 people because 2 more today, 7 people who have tested positive. And many of them are young people. And it's scary.
Yeah, my daughter says the same thing. Her friends, her network, she's 24, and her network, she said, is getting quite great. In fact, her boyfriend, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, he worked in a retail store and he works at a studio as a music engineer. Yeah. Both locations. He's the only one in both locations that didn't get it.
Wow.
And so they're not welcome in our house because he's like, you're shedding, man.
Get away you are super shedder.
You are way too close to it. And, but it's and she's very cautious, my daughter. And luckily that they've been basically hermits.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a hermit when you're 24.
No kidding. Good for her.
But yeah, so they, and she works, she's a makeup artist. So she's working a little bit in TV and a little bit of this, fashion stuff. And anyways, it's tough. And she works in retail as well, because that's how you survive these days. So, but it's tough. And she actually, she's not usually tough on people, but she was telling me the story when she works in the store in Gastown, and she started yelling at this group of women who were in the corner who all pulled their masks down. And she was like, hey, pull your mask back on. Which is not my daughter's style.
Oh my God, there's a lot of blame game going on. But I mean, before we get deep into the blame game and possible next steps. I do want to reference my column this week is about the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, that's a massive story. At the time of taping, 25 on the protocol list from the Canucks organization. 19 of those are players. Being on the protocol list doesn't necessarily mean you've tested positive, but being on the protocol list means the likelihood of testing positive is pretty great, especially when you're talking about this big business. But it all came down to one person, one player.
What happened?
Well,
where'd they go?
The word is Whistler.
Whistler.
Yep. So now you draw a straight line.
Is that against the rules for them to do that? Are they supposed to stay hunkered down in their town?
Nope, they're allowed to be in the community. They're not allowed. They're allowed to be in the community, but you're not allowed to ski. So, I mean, that's one thing that the hockey players have always complained about, right? So what were you going to Whistler for if not?
Well, maybe it's family.
Maybe, but I don't know who it is, and I'm not casting any blame. I'd like to shift it from the blame game on the Canucks to saying, why don't these guys use their platform as an opportunity to inform young people? Like, what a humongous fan base of those who have tuned out provincial health officers and politicians and what have you. These guys have enough. Do it on your cell phone. Doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't have to be slick. I wrote all about it. That's
absolutely.
My medal this
week.
Tell
your story. Tell your story.
Listen to George-affleck, Curve Communications people. Listen to him. Anyways, all came down to one. We don't know for sure that it is the P1, the Brazil variant that is ripping through the Canucks organization and impacting young people who I'm hearing from the sources within the team that it's not a bunch of asymptomatic. It's people are sick. So
really?
Yeah, we need to be mindful of that in a big way. And so much of the P1 spread in the Lower Mainland is West Vancouver, downtown west side of Vancouver, West End, west side of Vancouver. The wealthier neighborhoods, people that tend to have places up at Whistler are finding themselves infected. So it looks like, and maybe why, and I'm speculating here, this is my unspun opinion, but that's why we're shutting down Whistler Blackcomb after months of, you know what? If you want to go ski for a day up at Whistler, it's fine. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's closed effective immediately. It's like,
I'm guessing Chelsea Handler is glad she left Whistler about 3 weeks ago.
That was so fun watching Chelsea Handler get smashed at Whistler, though.
I know, but she's going to be living and doing the Vogue as a permanent comedian, right?
Yep.
When we get out of this, and so she's moved here.
I love it.
So she said, "Well, I might as well live in Vancouver. I might as well live in Whistler." But she left just to go back to Los Angeles and all
get her shot.
Get her shot like everybody else in America. Not that we're envious.
But isn't it interesting though? America getting their first taste of socialized medicine, right?
I dare you to say that.
I just said
not the same. No, it's private sector. We're paid for it somehow. Yeah, okay. It's interesting. It is interesting.
Where are we going next?
It was implemented by Donald Trump of all people, so
There you go. We are ahead of the game when it comes to timing today. There is a live briefing this afternoon where the expectation is there will be more data about who's in hospital and what their ages are and where geographically these outbreaks are happening. So that's where I think it's West Side, West End, West Van, Whistler, all of the W's. But also to find out sort of how this next chapter is between now and getting a higher portion of the population vaccinated. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, you know this. I know you've interviewed this guy. Everybody seems to be interviewing the guy who's a hardcore into lockdown. And we saw that Ontario today officially for 1 month has gone into hardcore lockdown. We've never had lockdown here in BC the way they have anywhere else. And certainly not anything like they had in New Zealand or Australia. So there is this sort of definite movement I sense. You got on the one hand, you've got the restaurants pushing the boundaries of loosen things up, but then you feel this momentum pushing in BC. I feel that let's just lock her down for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, get these cases down, and also get a lot of vaccinations done at the same time, so that when we come out of that lockdown, we are under control again. And, as a small business owner, it's very daunting, but it's also, really stressful. I mean, I've got, as I've mentioned, half my staff are here, the other half are at home. It's great that we can communicate all the different ways we do it, but it's also, and, business is okay now. Things have definitely, from my point of view, for most of the, it's bounced back, but it's you sort of see that argument, let's just get this done. Can we just get this over with? So I'll be interested. I think there's a lot of pressure on Dr. Bonnie Henry and the Premier to really say, you know what, let's just lock her down.
So you think schools will close?
Yeah, I think just lock the whole province down for like 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks.
Is that fair to the areas though that have very little or no community spread? Because right now, I mean, it is very specific to Metro Vancouver.
Yeah, and I don't see why you can't regionalize that kind of stuff.
So if you lock everything down, George, do you shut down the ferries? Like,
of course,
because
you have to.
That's the thing. That's the problem here. And so goods and services need to get back and forth. The ferries need to continue to run, and they're never going to check people at ferry terminals. You saw the people last weekend going to Tofino on vacation. I'm so mad about that. And then I hear,
how can you? Of course, you can check them.
But see,
you have to show ID. You got to go through a thing when you board. You literally can say no, sorry, turn your car around.
But it's not in their. It's not in their job description to do that. They're not border patrol people. Right? Like I know a lot of people growing up in Tsawwassen. I know a lot of people who have worked at the ferries since grade 12, right? Like they're good paying jobs. They're great jobs. They're good lifestyle jobs, whatever. They are not police officers. They are not trained to tell.
I know, but the power that Dr. Bonnie has, she has a lot of power and she can mandate certain things. She can say, okay, well, you won't do it. We're going to put we're only going to have a certain number of sailings. That's one thing you do. And obviously I'm not a logistics person on how any of this, but I would say you limit the sailings and it's only for goods and services and, whatever, specific things related to those people, like any travel. And you just put a couple of cops there then. I don't know. I mean, if that's what we have to do, I think the island is obviously not as badly hit as other places, but containing it, if it's the whole province or whatever it is, I just sense I'm basing this on momentum that I sense out there, and that often is the case. And Dr. Bonnie Henry was against masks, so you and I took her a while to embrace that. So
you and I are very much in the same mind of like I would love to see the travel shut down for 6 weeks as opposed to shutting down. I would like a stay in place order so that unless your goods and services are essential, just like the border crossing, you can't move outside of your community. You can still, go to the store at the end of the street. Like we're all in our own little bubbles. That's where my head is. Cause we know all too well in the Lower Mainland, if you put a roadblock or a work site, if you have to do road maintenance on Highway 99, on Highway 17, on Highway 1, on the Sea to Sky Highway, there are pinch points that you can absolutely manage traffic. And we saw it a year ago right now when everybody did go home and stay home. We saw how there was no traffic on the streets. The fact that roads are as busy as they are speaks to the level of disregard that people seem to have for these orders. And some of us are absolutely staying home. I walk the dogs, I come home. I walk the dogs, I come home. I work like this, and then that's all I do. Like I really want to go out. I'm so pissed when I talk to somebody, close friends, who are like, yeah, no, we were up at Whistler for the weekend again, or, we just decided to go over the island, get away. I'm like, you're the problem.
You can't. Yeah, I know. And I'm not sure we can go backwards and make things more strict. Maybe we can. But I think, I hate to point this out, though, and there's lots of people talking about this as well, that decision to hold the election. And since that election, it seems like the Premier has not been as tough and concerned about these numbers as he was prior to the election.
I look at it more as the holidays. Like the election, do I think the election was a good idea? No. Was it, as you had said so many times on here, manifested by numbers? Like the numbers were so great that the negative blowback to this for politically would greatly be outweighed by the positive numbers in the fact that at this point because if the election were to be held a month from now, would the results be remarkably different? Probably. But when I look at Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, March break, these are the times when you look at the graphs, these are the times where that 2-week lag goes like this. And it went up and it went up and then it went up again. So, I mean, the blame game is really heating up. Obviously, we're going to blame the politicians. We're going to blame Dr. Henry. There are people that want it to be locked down. Then you got the people at Corduroy Restaurant wanting to open it all up. Like, how do you get the anti-maskers to lock down?
That is, that corduroy, I don't want to get into the details of corduroy, but to make that kind of sacrifice for your business for something, I don't get it. I mean, why? She's basically out of business. I mean, she's completely devastated all her business operations. She's got the pie company, and I guess she was an anti-masker. I'm not sure. I don't even know much about her, but it's so strange. I mean, I guess
She
in
lost
her
me when she had
mind,
her infant child strapped to her chest while fighting
yeah,
with bylaw officers and law enforcement. Like, I'm like, really? That's what
I
you're doing
know,
now?
and it's but in their minds, these people who are anti-maskers, they believe that they're fighting fascism and totalitarianism and history, who knows? I mean, there were decisions that were made after 9/11, certainly in America, about privacy, and even in Canada to a certain degree, that has never been reversed.
Yep.
And the access they have, certainly in America, and this is there's lots of information. The relationship to servers, for example, in America, because of 9/11, the federal government anytime can go access a corporation's databases. They have the ability to go in there and take whatever they want. So a lot of American companies have their servers in Canada because they're free of that rule, and they can keep all their information up in Canada. So they're just, I can see the argument about, concern over totalitarianism, fascism, information gathering, et cetera, et cetera. But, I think that let's keep things in perspective here. And this is a disease that's killing people.
That's where I was going to go.
We see places that have, like New Zealand and Taiwan and all these places and even the Maritimes, the Atlantic Canada, who have done the full hardcore lockdown and have nipped this thing, done it. And we went for the casual approach, which I actually kind of like in some ways because it makes it easier to exist. And we didn't get that kind of backlash before. We weren't getting that anger. People were a little chilled out more here in BC for a long time, but definitely now we're seeing that anger grow. You see those protests growing. You see people like the Corridor Restaurant,
Jason Tetro, right? Super awesome science show, Jason Tetro.
Yeah.
So when I spoke with him, it would be almost a year ago, 10 months ago, he told me about the timeline of a pandemic. This is part of the timeline of the pandemic. Yeah, this is the part where the blame game really heats up.
I see. Yeah.
And then the case numbers rise because everybody's loosened up and they're tired and they're mad at everything. So they're just like, screw it. And then the numbers spike, then the hospitals fill, and then everybody knows somebody who's sick or has died. And then everybody decides, oh, damn, we better pull together. And then everybody comes together, shuts down, and then it ends. So this is the ugly end bit that in 6 pandemics, we have not changed. I texted him the other day. I'm like, so here we are. And he's like, yep, you'd think we'd learn, but we don't. So there's that. So let's talk about learning.
Yeah, and just on that final note is that each province is, they say that Ontario is about a month ahead of us on some of the numbers on this, this and that. So you sort of get, okay, well, are we in a month? Are we going to wait a month for
3,400 cases a day?
We know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. 3,398 cases today in Ontario.
30. Yeah, so you can do the math on whether or not we should go full lockdown. I think that I believe we're heading that way. Whether I don't know, I'm not saying I agree with it or I don't agree with it. I'm just saying I think we're heading that direction.
Get out your puzzles, people. Time to make some sourdough. This is what's happening. You're going to catch up on your UnSpun podcast. Before we wrap up this edition, we got just 5 minutes left to go here, George. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention what would be the top story if not for COVID-19. There is no question that the Cullen Commission would be the top story across the board.
We're not going to talk about NPA?
Oh, right. That story. Okay, no, let's start this. So you're running for mayor? How's this going to work?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you can read my column on this in Vancouver is awesome that came out yesterday. The sudden announcement that John Cooper was going to be the mayoral candidate for the NPA came out of nowhere.
With no vote within the party.
No process. And so my column and my argument and there was people pressuring me and wanting me to run for the mayor for an NPA or whatever. But what John and the NPA have done is quite strategic, I think. It's their attempt, because the mayor's working full time on re-election right now.
Stewart,
in Vancouver.
Yeah,
Mayor Stewart. So he is all focused. He sees his biggest competition as the NPA because he continues to attack them, has since last fall. So that says something about and I think I've talked about that before. As much as you might hate the board of the NPA and all that stuff, it's really about this is a strategic move to position somebody to be the face of the NPA, They chose John behind closed doors, did not let the caucus know. They
Why? Why that?
because they couldn't trust them. Not that I'm saying they're untrustworthy. What I'm saying is that they couldn't let this leak. They couldn't let this leak because if they let it leak, then it would be an infighting. There would be worse.
Right.
So you just got to kind of
make the decision.
Do it. Just do it.
Got you.
And because even if they talk to me, if they didn't do, So he's got to beat. And I tweeted out my projection based on all the rumors going. Because yes, Vancouver's coming back. We've got potentially angry MPAers who might run. You've got Ken Sim out there. You got this. I mean, you look at the right side, center to right of center spectrum, political spectrum, and you've got like 6 people potentially running against 1. So best case scenario, if the election were held today, my prediction would be Kennedy-Stewart would get about 70,000 votes. John would get about 60. Everybody else would be 20,000, 10,000, 5,000. So you can see why the NPA is going, we need those 20,000 votes. We need to kill either, not literally kill. I mean, and this is, I was careful. I had a lot of metaphors. I think take down whatever we had to get rid of our competition. Ken Sim's a real problem for the NPA, and the business community need to understand that. And I think that they're going to work hard at convincing the business community that you got to stop supporting this guy.
Why is he such a bad
Stewart? Because he's going to take 20,000 votes, and you get the 60,000 John, 70,000 Mayor Stewart. John needs 20,000 more votes, guaranteed. I'd say right now, if Ken Sim can pull the plug on his ridiculous decision to run, it's ridiculous. He's not going to win. He couldn't win when he had a machine behind him. He's not going to win. He's going to take 20,000, maybe 30,000 votes, enough to spoil and to provide Kennedy-Stewart with a victory. The people who are making these decisions, and I'm not part of any of them, are need to coalesce and get together and say, okay, and maybe the board of the NP needs to fix itself. Whatever. They're probably working on that. I know John's saying they are.
I want to talk about that next week for sure.
They got to get rid of this competition, and that takes time. And so this decision was based on a decision. We got to move forward, and we need to face, and we got to go to the business community. We got to go to the donors who are giving money to Ken Sim and potentially Yes Vancouver and blah, blah, blah. You guys, we don't need 30 names on the mayoral ballot, for God's sakes. Let's just if we want to get rid of Kennedy-Stewart, if you don't like him, I mean, a lot of people love Kennedy-Stewart. It's fine. Then we need to get together and make this happen. And who is that person? And John's argument and the NPA's argument, he's got 3 wins under his belt. Get more votes.
He definitely knows how City Hall works.
Kennedy-Stewart, he knows how City Hall works.
That's a big one for the electorate. Yeah.
Yeah.
October 15th, 2022, your birthday, October 15th, 2022 is your birthday, and also the day of the municipal election. A lot will happen between now and then, and we will definitely talk about it more on UnSpun podcast. You're always following along at George _affleck. At Jody Vance, also on Twitter. I mentioned the Cullen Commission. It's important that Canadians and in particular British Columbians are paying attention to this story, George, and this week in particular.
Yeah, all the big wigs are coming in, but they're all just going to say caucus privilege or whatever, ministerial privilege. They're not going to answer any questions. They're not.
Won't that spark a lawsuit, though? Can Rich Coleman really just go I can't talk about this here?
That's the rule.
That's the rule.
And, they're not running again, so they have there's no political gain for them to speak. It goes back to the renewal of the party and all that stuff. But basically,
won't that really frustrate the voter who wants some answers here and some accountability, even if the accountability isn't to be put on the shoulders of those politicians that were in office at the time where this was pretty blatant? How do we come to terms with this?
I think the Liberals have been. I mean, I ran. Obviously, full disclosure, I ran for the Liberals last.
Right, which is why I asked you the question here on UnSpun, dude.
I know, but the voters spoke. The voters spoke. I mean, you may not get satisfied from the Cullen Commission, but commissions very seldom provide you the satisfaction that you want.
Fair enough.
What you have is elections. Right. And the BC Liberals were devastated in the last election, and it's going to take a long time for them to rebuild. They're working on it. They got a leadership campaign going. So, I would say that, okay, if you don't get what you need from the Cullen Commission, at least know that the people of this province made a decision in October last year to, adios a lot of you, majority to NDP. That was punishment for a lot of decisions that people think that the Liberals made that were wrong. So that's
We talk a lot of,
democracy.
I get that, but we talk a lot about transparency and the need for it and the want for it. So I think next week, once we start to see some of the testimony at the Cullen Commission happen, I think we continue to unpack it here. It's important that we do on UnSpun. I believe that, George, and because when you say full disclosure, because you did run for the Liberals in Vancouver Fairview, your perspective leads to greater understanding. Like, I mean, we have to have these conversations. And I know in politics, it's very, silo. If we say nothing, that's better managed. That's why UnSpun is a thing, because it's all about spin. It's like, how do we spin this one? Right. But I want to find out how I can qualify it and quantify it in my mind as a born and raised Vancouverite. I want to know what happened here. And I want to make sure most importantly, that it stops and never happens again. That's the goal. It's not necessarily let's find somebody.
Nothing bad. Are you asking for nothing bad to ever happen again in politics? I mean,
no, I'm asking for money laundering and our housing market to be used as a stock market and a way to hide cash. Like, I remember a time I worked at 86th Street Music Hall when the little casino next door had a max bet of $25. What changed? Where? Why? And when $10,000 in cash and duffel bags started rolling through casino doors, were those restrictions not put back in place? Like, these are the questions that I want answered. And I don't think it's too much to ask personally, but I know we're out of time. So we're going to have to talk about it.
And we'll have more information next week for sure, because we'll hear from some of those people that are being called to testify. So
I'm going to go
be
calm
interesting.
Can I say one more thing? This will will change the subject. I would like to say happy birthday to Piers Affleck, belated 22 years old.
20.
20?
20, yeah.
20. I thought it was 22. Sorry, 20 years old. The composer of our UnSpun theme.
That's right.
So he gets
and
a shout
another
out.
podcast I have. He did another one for me. He's really good at these podcasts. If anybody needs a podcast music band, Piers
That's
Affleck
a business for him.
And, it is. It was fun. It's fun working with him on it. But
I can't believe
he keeps asking, "Hey, do you want me to redo this one? I can redo your UnSpun." I say, "No, I kind of like it. Oh, it's kind of like that was so long ago." I'm like, "No, it's our theme. It's us. It's our identity now."
That's who we are. People know. Okay, we got to go because people also trust us to keep it to 30 minutes, and we're 32 minutes in. We got to go. Say goodbye, George.
Bye.